Good evening, friends of Empty Cloud Monastery. This is Tan Jagaro. And yes, good evening to Elenice and Rick, Karen, and Kumu. All right. People coming from all over Indiana, New Jersey, Bainbridge Island. I don't know what state that is. I'm assuming it's Washington. Wow. Okay. And Pennsylvania. Okay, great. So tonight, yes, I'll be sharing some reflections on Dhamma, and then we'll get a chance to do a little Q&A, and yeah, let's see how it goes. Okay, so first I'm going to pay respects to our teacher. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. What has a nature to arise has a nature to pass away, to cease. These were the essential teachings of the Buddha, encapsulated in the quality of experience of anicca. And it's one of the characteristics that, as we start to settle our minds and tune in to experience in a direct way, in a way that's still and sensitive and compassionate, we start to get a feel for this quality. I think one of the things that really supports tuning into this experience is when we have a chance to travel, going to a new place or departing from a place. I'll be leaving Empty Cloud Monastery in a little over 24 hours, actually, on Friday, and I'll be I think it's let's say I came around mid-January, so it's been about 5 weeks, and one of the things that I think was really rising for me, I've been reflecting on these changes that are happening, is kind of a very palpable sense of appreciation. There's a lot of kindness and generosity that I received from the abbots, Bhante Sudasa and Ayasoma, for allowing me to stay here at Empty Cloud, and they've been very supportive and very kind. And also Summoner Metiko, who's been just a delight having on many of my alms rounds. He's been joining me in the mornings, and we've had a lot of conversations about Dhamma and about life, and so it's of course making friends with getting to meet the lay people. There's a number of people that were here that have left, but the people that are staying right now is Linda and Joe and Larry, and I got a chance to meet Linda the first time I was here at Empty Cloud, and it's just it's been we actually had a very enjoyable conversation today, just learning more about exploring Dhamma and monastic life and what that possibly means, and of course getting to know Joe a little more, and it's been quite a delight seeing his creativity and his just like a Mahametta, just kind of he's giving the flower the spreading of flowers motion right now, and it's also just been really enjoyable getting to know Larry here, and just haven't met too many practitioners from the southern states, and it's really quite nice to actually know that there's actually quite a lot of interest in Dhamma practice and Buddhism in just all over the world, and I can just feel from him his just many years of practice and wisdom, and it's just been very enjoyable. And of course, so many people have been coming and going from here, both people staying in the monastery and just people that are kind of supporters of the day. Today we we went down to Summit this morning for alms round. We were invited by a local in the area named Torah, and there was. He said, "Oh, come down to Summit. There, people there, and it'd be really good alms round." So we went there for the first time this morning, and we were walking around town, and it was just really amazing. So there were three people, of course, we knew that were offering alms today: Torah and Ming Kwang and Marky, and they've all been very inspiring supporters. You could just kind of feel their happiness and just joy whenever they're here or whenever they're around and offering, and it's really palpable, kind of seeing that kind of joy and faith. But we also this morning we got a chance to, and this is always that kind of possibility when you're in alms round, is having what are known as kind of spontaneous offerings or just kind of spontaneous encounters. When we were standing outside a Greek restaurant, and it was Senator Metiko and I, and we usually what I do is I look at kind of where there might be people coming and going, and where there might be kind of places where they might have food, and so we'll go outside a place, maybe stand 10 or 15 minutes, and then walk off to the next place, and so we were standing outside this Greek restaurant, and actually just before this, a woman passed by us, and she gave this sign. She smiled at us, and this is actually pretty unusual. It's actually very usual in the monastery, right, for lay people to put their hands on Anjali, but it's very unusual to actually see that outside the monastery. It happens sometimes, and so I took notice of it, and I was, oh wow, what a delight. And I was actually Senator Metiko and I, we have this sentence kind of saying, like, whenever we have any sort of positive interaction, it's like, oh, we've done our job for the day, because that's actually really quite what you're actually doing on alms round. It's not so much to collect food. I mean, that's a kind of a practical utility, but it's really to be a sign of the samana, to give people that remembrance that there is something important that one can do in life, right? And they may not necessarily know about the Buddhist religion, or if you can call it religion. They may not know about the teachings, but they can see that you're somebody, you're religious, you're doing something different, right? And that sparks kind of a curiosity. So whenever you see somebody, kind of raise their hand in Anjali in the United States, it goes, oh, does this person know who we are, right? Like, it probably does. And so anyways, we go off, and we're staying outside this Greek restaurant, and this woman comes back about 5 or 10 minutes later, and she starts talking to us, and she actually mentions that she's a Buddhist practitioner, and she's like, are you guys are you alms round? I was like, yes, we are. It's like, so she knows what we're doing. Again, very very rare. And she was like, I got you some croissants. And I was like, wow, that's very kind of you. Yeah. And of course, she wanted to offer money, and we had to politely decline. It's very kind of her, very generous of her, but part of our monastic code is we have to, uh, refrain from accepting or using money. And she understood, and she kind of told her story, and yeah, just it was quite a delight to see her. So we gave her a blessing, and she was, she could see it. There's a big smile on her face, and we told her about the monastery that was about 20 minutes north driving distance from where we were, and she went on her way. It was actually right when all this was happening that Torah actually pulled up. And he wanted to, I guess, get a jump on offering alms. So we actually put we have a URL where we share with a few people, like, that shows our current location, right? So that he probably found where we are using that. And then, so he pulled up in his car, and he was really delighted to offer alms this morning. And he did it very traditional way. Thai came over with these kind of containers full of food, and actually was directly offering into our bowls. Of course, and while we were doing this, there was of course, we're standing outside this Greek restaurant. The owner of the Greek restaurant was probably looking at us and wondering what was going on, right? What is this? This is really weird, right? And so I think he kind of figures out what's going on. And so he actually opens the door and goes, hey guys, why don't you come inside? And I kind of turn around, and so I had to kind of make a quick, judgment call. I was like, okay, do we just kind of no, thank you, or just stand out here because you know what you're doing? And I said, okay, let's take a chance. Let's go inside. Okay, let's go. So we actually went inside, and Tor, offered the remaining food that he had. And while we were doing this, the restaurant owner came over and put some things on the table, like some utensils, and then put some water on the table. And he actually wanted us to eat there, and so we go over to the restaurant owner and say, that's it's really, really kind. We're actually, we're actually about to head off, right? And just, but can we include you in this blessing, right? Because he, offered water and he wanted to help us out, and so we actually give a blessing to some chanting to both Tor and the restaurant owner. And maybe it was a little weird for him at first, but but you could tell he was like, that's not bad, And then after I was talking for a little bit, and he was like, he's like, what kind of, like, he was trying to understand what we were doing, and so I explained, we're Buddhist monks and we collect food in the morning, and he's like, oh, well, let me get you something, and he's like, please go over and, select something, and, we'll make it. And I was like, wow, and I was like, wow, okay. So we go over and we look at the menu, and it's like, oh, okay, let's figure out something that's, not too hard, and we'll come back later. And so we chose something and say goodbye, and we'll come back in about 45 minutes. And so we continue on our alms round. And then along the way, we stop at another shop, and it was a place where it had a diner and a bakery right next to each other. And so we're kind of standing right in between them, and we're staying, it's okay, let's go, 5-10 minutes, and just, we just standing outside. And then just shortly before we were about to leave, I think was maybe the owner or the manager of the bakery comes out and says, hey guys, what are you guys doing? And it's like, and so, oh, we're Buddhist monks. And he's like, oh, so we tell him, that, we're in alms round, we're from a monastery, up north. And he kind of gets, curious. And so we're talking more. He says, come on in, and we'll talk more. And he invites us inside, and he's very curious, and he goes, oh, I'm glad you guys were just, you guys, like, you weren't doing anything, weird, because I just saw you guys, and you guys were just standing there. I was like really worried, and because I thought, maybe, like, something was wrong or something. And it's like, no, it's okay. And he's like, are you? And then of course, after he told me we're Buddhist monks, he was like, do you guys know, like, kung fu or anything like that? And I was like, well, we get this question sometimes, and it was like, sorry, we don't. Maybe some of us know kung fu, but we don't do it as a intentional practice. That's a very particular tradition in China. But he was still quite interested, and he actually, so he asked his staff to make some coffee for us, and so just very, again, just kind of very impromptu, very generous of them. And so we said thank you, and the coffees, the staff made the coffee, and we did the coffee, and we left, and we you're on alms around, you're usually trying to juggle a bowl in your room, and you have some other things, like you have a bag with you. And so now, in addition, they were trying to have this coffee, right? So we're like, okay, let's just find a place where we can drink this. So we found kind of tucked off of somewhere, and we drank the coffees, and then we went over to kind of meeting place where we were going to meet, originally going to meet Torah, and I think some other people are going to offer. So we made our way over to the Starbucks right outside the Starbucks and Summit, and we waited out there for a while, and then we saw Torah in the distance, and he was taking pictures of us, and then Miquan and Marky came to about 5 or 10 minutes later to offer food, and you could tell they were just so happy that we were there, right? They were just like really delighted, and they did it very, very traditional Thai way, and then we did chanting, and then of course afterwards they in a very traditional Thai way, they want to take pictures, and so they were like, it's like, oh, I'll take pictures, and other people did pictures, and then while this was happening, this guy comes out of Starbucks, and he sees all this, and he's like, hey, I can take a picture of all you guys together. And so, comes over, and so everybody kind of comes together, and so there's, Torah and Miquan and Marky, and then Summer and Mekto and I are standing there, and then the stranger, is taking pictures, and you could tell, like, you just looking at his face, he was actually quite delighted and enjoying this, right? He's like, he thought, he didn't know what was going on, right? But he just thought this was great, and everyone was having a good time. And then, so of course, after taking pictures, we start walking on to where this point we're going to leave. So we going to head off over to the Greek restaurant and to pick up the food, and then head out. And while we're walking there was this woman that comes over, and she just sees us, and she has this like huge smile on her face. She's like, "Oh my gosh, are you guys monks?" I'm like, "Yes, we're Buddhist monks." And so we start talking, and again, she had this incredible smile. She didn't necessarily know, it's like, wow, I can't believe it. What a good fortune to meet Buddhist monks. And of course, she didn't kind of what do you say? She didn't say she was Buddhist or anything. She was just somebody that just like, wow, like what? I can't believe this. We get this sometimes. I remember, like, for example, there was going on the train one day, and there was this guy, one of the people working on the train. He actually, again, on the train, I was there by myself that day, and he says, "You're a Buddhist monk, and you're the first Buddhist monk I've actually ever got a chance to meet," right? And you can tell he was like really excited, right? Because he's heard of Buddhist monks, may have seen them on TV, but like he was the first real life Buddhist monk, right? And so you get to see how the people like. There are people that are like quite excited, about Buddhist monk. They may not necessarily know a lot about the practice or the teachings, but they know there's something to this. It means something peaceful. It means something kind. It means something compassionate. And people, they feel like, hey, that they like that sense of goodness. And so anyways, so we talked to this woman, and of course, she wants some pictures too. And so Mark, I think it was Mark and Miquan were there. So they helped take some pictures, and then of course then we had to go. So anyways, this, kind of one of the things that kind of, it was like this morning is just like the sense of appreciation and gratitude for that kind of people. So like, there's kind of like I said, there's kind of like a practical thing that we're doing, and there's definitely a sense of generosity that people are doing and sharing. But there's also this really palpable sense appreciation in the air of all these kind of experiences. And that's like a quality that I think really comes about when we can stay in touch with this, one of the qualities of experience that is anicca. So anicca often has this kind of sense of, loss, right? In the sense of, all is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me, right? This is one of the 5 reflections to be done every day, right? The Buddha recommended. But it also has there's another flip side too. I think Ajahn Paulson, I really like, his other flip side. It's like the flip side of that is like, all that I hate and despise, will become otherwise. Will I no longer have to be around. I mean, he didn't say it like that, but but it's true. It's true. It's like that quality applies to both things that are pleasing and also, not pleasing. But it also gives a sense of like, oh, this is not a certain thing. This is not going to last forever. These experiences that I'm having aren't going to last forever. These people, these beings aren't going to last forever. And so it can help us really focus on things that the things that actually are important, that are actually going to give rise to happiness and joy and well-being, and help us not dwell so much on those things that truthfully don't, I mean, I think we realize in maybe an intellectual sense don't matter, but we often get caught up in, things that are depressing, or, we get focus on the annoying things about each other, or the irritating things about each other, or the, rightfully, ugly things that people can do and quite often do. But the thing is that when we pay too much attention to these things, they really don't do anything for us. In fact, they often just allow the mind to just drown in sorrow and misery and depression and anger. And so it's like that quality of anicca, when we can pay attention to experience, we can really help us understand what's important. And so, I one of the practices I think that we can do that I think it could really help with this is the reflection on dying and death. And, initially this might seem like a kind of I don't know, intimidating thing, a morbid thing, a scary thing, and it can be from time to time. But the real idea behind this is actually to sober the mind and to help it reorient it around the things that are important, right? And of course, like I said, one of the qualities that can come up from this reorientation is appreciation and all the happiness and joy that can come out of that. And so I remember I was talking to Metika one morning. It was actually during alms round, and we were discussing like practices around contemplating death, and one of the methods that I actually really use, and I found quite beneficial for myself, and I discovered this playing around. This is a long time ago, before I was a monastic. Was when you're, let's say, just going anywhere, walking anywhere, is to usually like if you're in a city, an urban environment, things are separated by a block, right? So what you do is you stop at the beginning of a block or an intersection, and you just stand there. You take a few moments to collect yourself as if you're doing standing meditation, maybe 5 to 10 seconds. And then after those 5 or 10 seconds, you bring to mind, when I get to the end of this block, I'm going to die. And then you start walking. And while you're walking, you just do not like a super slow walking meditation, but just a normal walk. And you bring that quality of meditative awareness to your feet and legs, right? You're not bringing like anything super intense, so you look weird or anything like that. I've done this as a layperson. I don't recommend it. Can attract the wrong attention. But just walk normally, but yeah, just keep your attention on your feet or your legs, like as if you're doing walking meditation. And what you'll find is that, you set out that intention, like, and that kind of raising the mind, like, I'm going to die when I get to the end of this block. And you just, just allow whatever to arise, okay? And still, like, just keep practicing meditation. So if anything arises, you just, note that, and you bring your attention back to your legs or your feet. And then when we get to the end of the block, stop. Okay, I'm done. And again, just as if you were in standing meditation, bring your attention to your legs and feet, and then you repeat to the next block. And I found this a very, very helpful practice, because often we have to, if we're walking around somewhere, we have to get from point A to point B, and this can be quite a useful tool to help calm the mind, sober the mind, reorient the mind. If it gets caught up with, things that are just not that important, it becomes pretty clear that, whatever you're caught up with, it's like, oh yeah, this is, this grudge you have is just not worth nursing anymore, And so yeah, this is like, for example, one of the things you can try. And of course, there's a lot of other methods of death contemplation, but this is, something that I think I found useful for myself, and so I thought to share that with the greater Empty Cloud community. And yeah, I think just in general, as as I wind down this visit here at Empty Cloud, I just have a lot of appreciation for my stay here, and I also, like, I think one of the really nice things about being here is, and I'm not going to be able to join for Friday, but the monk chat on Fridays, those are actually really, really interesting to be part of that. It is intimidating being up here. I'm what do you call a Majjhima monk, so I'm just out of my dependence here and no longer a junior monk. But it honestly feels quite intimidating to have to go up and talk about Dhamma. But it's been very engaging, actually, hearing people's Dhamma questions. Are like actually really excellent questions. A lot of times I'm like, oh, what is the answer to that? Or, I'm like, okay, look at Bhante Siddhasa, I assume I'm curious how they would answer things. And so it really gets my interest, my Dhamma interest going. And so I really appreciate the larger community, the online community, being able to help with my own practice of Dhamma, my study of Dhamma. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with everybody here, everybody in the monastery, and then of course everybody online. And I hope we get a chance to cross paths in the future. So why don't we say 3 sadhus at the end? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so I think this is a time where the community can ask questions, both the local community as well as the online community. And there.
Talk a little bit about your motivation for the next steps you are taking.
You mean the next steps in California? Okay. So for those that don't, I don't think I haven't talked about this more broadly, but I'm planning a traditional Buddhist pilgrimage, or a Buddhist monastic pilgrimage, or what's often called Tudong, this coming spring in California. And the motivations for me doing this are multifaceted. There's one camp of motivations that I know about, and there's another camp that I don't know about. So I'll talk about the ones I know about, because the ones I don't know about, I don't know. So one of the for the ones I do know, I actually have quite a bit of interest in doing alms round. I think part of that is um, one is it's an enjoyable experience. I get it. It's a very palpable way of staying in touch with anicca. It's also, I think, a way for me to I don't know how to put it. It's like to add more. You could say kind of creativity or more dynamism. Like it's like something where if you have like a schedule and you're doing the same schedule, you can get quite kind of a nerd to it. Like if you do meditation like the same way, one of the challenges of doing meditation the same way is you can kind of get a nerd to your own habits, right? So this is actually a way of trying to just trying to add a little bit more flexibility and creativity. So you don't, your mind doesn't get kind of ossified in the process. I think another aspect is that I've been thinking about this for a long time, actually. I was actually inspired by a lot of the stories of monks going on Tudong, probably from the time I started learning about monasticism. Of course, you hear about the great masters who've done, Tudong in Thailand, but also for example, a lot of the Baigiri monks that did Tudong in the States, right? It's a very different thing because, we're in a culture that, again, it's pretty rare that people are aware that we have Buddhist monks, and so by and far, most people don't know what we are. So a lot of the challenges of being on Tudong in the United States don't have to do with like encountering like, wild tigers or snakes or anything like that, but actually are more to do with just meeting the practical reality of, getting enough food and avoiding getting hit by a car and, trying to stay hydrated and things like that. And, not getting kind of accosted from people being angry that you're on their private property and all that kind of stuff. So it takes on a different kind of thing. But I was always interested in these stories. I was always very curious and fascinated hearing about monks going on Tudong in the United States. And I remember kind of thinking about like, gosh, I think in particular like the kind of central coastal areas of California seem like that might be actually a good place to do it, and I've been thinking of a number of years, and of course, more recently, I've had this interest in going alms round, and I was like, why do I do this? I'm not getting any younger. When nature of the age, I'm not going to be aging, so my body is going to every year it's getting a little bit older, a little bit more brittle, a little bit less flexible and energetic, and then I'm also the nature to die. I'm not going to be on dying, so. If there's an interest and this seems skillful and wholesome, why not do it? So I think those are the major motivations. It's like there's the noticing that there was quite an interest in alms round, the seeing that it helps with my mind being less ossified, more flexible, saying developing that perception of anicca, and just like kind of fulfilling something I think that's been in the back of my mind for a number of years. So hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. You should know.
Oh, thank you. Joe?
I just felt so grateful for you sharing your Dhamma experience. It brought up a lot of appreciation for just the Buddha creating that system for us to experience such a joy. Just like someone, we're all sitting here and like you just shared with us someone who was kind to you and someone fed you and someone was genuinely so happy to do that, and it's just something so beautiful about the practice that I just felt I wanted to say thank you for sharing that with us. Also, I wanted to talk about something that I like asking. I've asked this with other monks, but I
Mhm.
always like to hear what their personal opinion is. Dana means giving.
Mhm.
Giving is such an important part of the practice, the Buddhist
Mhm.
practice. And I never thought about this until recently, that the word forgiveness has the word giving in it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was wondering how your practice of Dhamma has inspired your ability to forgive.
So the question is, how has your practice of Dana inspired your ability to forgive? So one of the things that I've noticed from Dana is that there's a quality of goodwill and a quality of relinquishment, like letting go, putting things down. And so you're in the exercise of Dana, usually you're also exercising those two qualities. At least for my own experience. It may be different from others. I know there's lots of different motivations to give, right? But I think those are two general ones. Um, I think the other thing about forgiveness is that you know it's easy to hold on to a grudge, you know, because if you just don't do anything, it usually just just sticks around, Um, but to forgive, it's like what I've noticed is that it's like, oh no, like it's like there has to be a kind of like a willingness to put forth effort. I've really okay. My mind's been, for whatever reason, kind of clamping down on this experience or this relationship with this person. It's like, okay, this is not something that is going to be for my long term being. It's not going to be for other person's long term well being. I want to put this down, right? And you may not be able to, right? But that effort will start the process, like that. Like, how do I do this? How can I do this? Mind, put it down. No, come on, let's no, you know. But you need to do that, right? You need to start that kind of internal process. What if it might manifest in a dialogue, that, or just manifest in different kinds of experiences, but that willingness to be with the mind and trying to wrestle with it while you're putting it down. So, and in giving, there's an activity, like if you're, for example, you know, if somebody is getting a gift for you, like a physical gift, right? It takes if you're a layperson, you have to work for the money to happen. So that takes a lot of effort and a lot of often that can involve all sorts of difficulty or frustration. And then of course you have to go out and find the thing and think about, is this going to be useful to the person, right? So there's a lot of like activity involved with that, right? And so I think forgiveness, I think it's very similar, right? So sometimes, like, I found one thing that's helpful at forgiveness is actually like, you know, like going over like, what would it look like to actually forgive this person? Sometimes we can do this. Sometimes recommended to like do like a forgiveness ceremony. So one of the really important things, by the way, about forgiveness, that it's different than reconciliation. Reconciliation is not necessarily possible, right? Forgiveness is always possible to do because that's about you. That's you willingness to drop the grudge. It doesn't necessarily mean you can have any sort of meaningful relationship or they can understand that there was some harm done, but you can drop that grudge. And think you should do that. Um, and so a lot of times people will do like a forgiveness ceremony, and so they'll maybe bring some memorabilia that might be related to that incident. They might have like a thing they might burn the things in, or to kind of maybe they go to the sea and like throw the things in the sea, or whatever it is. But whatever that process is requires effort, right? And so that actually it's almost like a way of communicating to the mind, like, hey, I'm serious, let's do this, like this is really not worth holding on to. And so I think in those ways, I think the process of dana and the process of forgiveness can be related to each other. So hope that gives you some ideas or answer the question. All right, so let's see here. We have some questions online. Let's see here. Okay. This is from Rick. Thank you, Tan Jagaro, for sharing the Dhamma online for those of us without access to a local monastic or sangha. Your sharing has made a wonderful difference in my life and practice. Oh, thank you, Rick. Karen says, thank you for all the lovely teaching, Tan Jagaro. Warm wishes for your health and well-being wherever the path takes you. Thank you, Karen. Okay. Rick has a question. Can you share more about the benefits and difficulties of sharing the Dhamma in person and online? How did you overcome or cope with the stress or anxiety? um, well, the obvious benefit of talking about the Dhamma is you start to be, well, you're thinking about the Buddha's words, right? And by talking about it, it's kind of like when you're learning how to teach something. When you actually try to teach something, you have no choice but become more skilled at that subject, right? If you're, for example, if you're teaching math, right, to somebody, let's say you're tutoring somebody in math, you may know how to solve a problem, right? But to teach somebody else how to solve this problem, you really have to understand it, right? It's not, it's kind of like an additional level of understanding. So I think in the same way, like in Dhamma, you start to really, your mind really starts to chew on this, right? Like in a way that you may not have by just kind of passively reading it or thinking about it on your own. So that's I would say one of the biggest benefits of sharing Dhamma. The difficulty of sharing Dhamma, yeah, you just, like, I think I'll speak for myself. I don't want to speak for other people, but I don't know. It's just like, you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to embarrass yourself. You don't want to look like an idiot. Um, you don't want to, give kind of like horrifying is to sort of give like wrong teachings, or like something that's like not what the Buddha said or not what the Buddha was pointing at. I mean that, and of course you could potentially lead somebody astray, or, that's like, yeah, that gives you kind of like, like kind of, like, don't want to do that. So that'd be maybe the difficulties. And how did you overcome or cope with the stress or anxiety? Um, unpleasant feeling arises, unpleasant feeling persists, unpleasant feeling passes away. It's just like anything, any kind of aspect of life. Um, I think one of the things about monastic practice in general, I mean, you're doing this all the time. I often, my experience, at least with the traditions that I've been part of, monastic practice feels like a burlap sack that you put on, and it's itchy, uncomfortable, and hot, and it like doesn't seem so bad in the beginning, but you keep wearing it and wearing it, and then they ask you to put on another burlap sack. In the case they throw some some rocks inside, and again, no one thing is so bad, but after a while it just starts. You're just like, it just, so you're just like, you have often no choice to try to learn how to cope with difficulties, and yeah, a lot of it really is just being willing to be patient, and that doesn't sound particularly inspiring, maybe, but you can. It's amazing when your mind, like, if you can be with difficulty for a long enough arc, and the mindfulness is strong enough, the mind can start to it's in the same way of it can pick up the kind of shorter term patterns of phenomena arising, persisting, and passing away, it can get a sense of these longer arcs of suffering as well. And there can be a deeper kind of wisdom that starts to arise over periods of time if you can be willing to be with difficulty, because the heart and mind can start to understand, oh, like even experience like this is not going to last forever, right? Again, this all sounds sort of obvious intellectually, but it's a different thing. It's like I remember, what was it? My first meditation course was the kind of Esengoenka tradition course, and I think Esengoenka was talking about, kind of like being, I think that being willing to be with pleasant bodily experience and unpleasant bodily experience and neutral bodily experience, and not reacting to these things and being still. And you can understand the benefits of that, and not reacting, and being equanimous with things coming in and out of her control, and you go, yeah, that's the way to live life. And then the person goes outside and notices his shoes missing, and he starts freaking out, and he's like, where are my shoes? Where are my shoes? He starts yelling at people, and and starts cursing at people, and finds his shoes. It's just it was just he actually it was just actually in the corner. He didn't realize he put it there. And yeah, I mean, it's like all these things where we think it's kind of obvious when you talk about it, but putting into practice, you just don't have to do it, right? And so that the monastic form, or at least many monastic forms, gives you that tangible experience of being with experience, and also the kind of the environment where you can cultivate that kind of sati and samadhi to be able to see these experiences clearly. So, hope that answers that question. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, this is just a message from one person to another. Okay, just thank you. Okay, great. Elenice, thank you, Bhante Tan Jagaro, for your teachings and present. Could you talk a little bit more about the quality of humility, a quality I really appreciate on you? Humility. Well, I guess humility is the willingness to admit you don't know everything. I think so. I don't know everything, so I don't know. It seems sort of obvious. Maybe it's more like that. Maybe recognize the dangers of being arrogant. Maybe that's I think a good way of putting it. So yeah, when you think you know everything, you actually can't learn. This is actually a teaching I actually got it wasn't a Buddhist teaching. It was actually an instruction I remember getting from a neighbor's father, and this was many decades ago. And this was like when I was going to school, university level schooling, and I was interested in studying physics at the time, and he was a physicist, and he was saying how one of the things he noticed about the smartest people that he knew in the field of physics was that when they were at conferences and kind of standing around, kind of like, just kind of talking with colleagues at conferences, they weren't the ones kind of bragging about research they've done or things they accomplished or papers they wrote. They were actually the ones that were asking lots of questions, often that would seem on the surface really maybe dumb questions, like how come you don't know this? Right? But they were willing to ask questions and be very curious. And like I said, even ask questions that might seem like, wow, you don't know about this, or you don't know about that. And that, I think, it made a lot of sense to me. You don't get anything by pretending to, at least you don't learn anything by pretending like you know something. So I think it's just a willingness to, not kind of chase maybe status so much, and also being willing, like valuing learning. So I think that would be maybe the two important ingredients for developing humility. So, okay, next question. Rick, thank you, Tan Jagaro. I've worked both as a university instructor and a K-12 teacher, and I have spent years helping others in a 12-step program. I feel led to help, but stress/anxiety has never faded. Uh, well, maybe there's a follow-up question, but maybe I'll just try to respond to that. So, Rick, yeah, let's say it seems like, yeah, if you find that you're like try in an area or in a field, and you find that this like a kind of certain level of stress or anxiety is there, and it doesn't seem to, it's kind of like it's always there. And so, one thing that comes to mind is being willing to take a step back and try something different for a while. So if you're doing something, let's say you're, again, I don't know if you're doing this kind of as a regular volunteer thing, and let's say you're doing it multiple times a week. Yeah, I would encourage you to see if you can step away from it for a while. And it's always good to do a meditation retreat when you can. Yeah, and try to see if you can get another perspective around it. And maybe even another thing you can do is maybe if there's let's say another 12-step group that you want to volunteer with, see how that works, right? It might be a particular things about the environment you're in. Getting kind of different perspectives can help with kind of helping the mind understand what might be going on in the heart with regards to the stress and anxiety. So there's a couple of things that come to mind. Mary writes, thank you for your lovely talks and chats while you're staying here in New Jersey. We'll miss your gentle and kind offerings of Dhamma explanation of Buddhism for those who seek the knowledge. Sadhu. Well, thank you, Mary. Okay, so I think that's it for the online questions. Or do you have a question here, Linda? Yes.
Yeah. I just was appreciating your comments about death meditation and the 5 reflections, particularly as it relates to skillfully doing that leading to appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
And that just really resonated, and I'm wondering if you could maybe just talk a little bit more about death contemplation,
Mm-hmm.
and perhaps different tactics or different approaches,
Mm-hmm.
and just like expound on anything that you feel. The topic.
Sure. So the question is basically, is there anything more I can add about death contemplation, death reflection? So let's see. Probably one thing that I would recommend is if you're if you have like a natural interest in death contemplation and meditation, it would probably be to I don't know, like show a little prudence, like kind of be a little how do you say it? I don't want to say hesitant, but just kind of be steady and slow. Just kind of see, kind of get an idea for what your motivations are around that. And if you're very reluctant around wanting to practice with death, similarly, to actually, be prudent and steady and slow around approaching, but maybe in a different way, not necessarily trying to kind of like, kind of restrain yourself, but more in terms of making sure there's enough. You're not trying to overdo it. You're not trying to do something you think you should do, right? In that kind of overbearing way, but more as trying to bring an attitude of, I want to be a happier person. I want to be willing to have a more even and steady life. I want to let go of things that are not that important, or to be able to put down old grudges. You kind of see what I'm saying? Like to bring up like that this is going to have positive benefits, right? And so in both cases is to take on the practice, and whether say your mind's inclined towards reflecting on death, or whether your mind is not inclined to reflecting on death, but to do it in a steady way. If your mind's very inclined to reflect on death, that's great. But it's more of just being kind of like kind of consciously very attentive to what are your actual motivations for this, right? Just being kind of a little careful. That, sometimes people can be like really into being morose and depressed. If that makes sense, right? And so if you've known yourself to have this tendency, then actually maybe death contemplation isn't the best thing for you, right? Or just being careful to see how is your mind reacting to this, right? I think in general it is, even if you're tense towards that, because you can be like interested in being morose and depressed, but when you actually reflect, I will actually pass away at some point. All the things that I value will be no longer. It might actually shift some things that you never thought. But to just be kind of careful you do it. And of course, if you're reluctant to do it, just to be encouraging and to focus on the benefits of what death contemplation can do for you. Let's see here. There's a lot of thank yous from Rick and Julie. Ajahn Nisabo is here. Okay, Ajahn Nisabo. Hello, Tan Jagaro. Great to see you over on the East Coast. Best wishes from Clear Mountain on the west side. Okay, thank you, Ajahn. Hope your retreat's going well. Okay, so yeah, it's all. We have time for one more question. Anybody has one? Larry.
I just want to share, there is an international group that is prominent in the United States called Death Cafe.
Oh, okay.
In various cities, and people gather. They drink coffee and tea, and they eat cake, and they talk about death.
Oh, wow.
And they do it not only about themselves, but family members, caregiving. There's a support element to it. It hasn't been around that long, but it's growing, and I know about it, of course, for being a part of the hospice community. And there are levels of support there that bring about healthy contemplation.
Very good. So
Death Cafe.
Larry was mentioning, if you didn't hear it, he was suggesting Death Cafe. I assume they have the internet site and all that. Look it up, and they have groups.
Facebook.
They have groups all over the United States and elsewhere. Okay, great. Okay, and I think that's it. So I guess we will say goodbye to the online community. I guess we'll do a few more sadhus. Okay. All right. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Goodbye, everybody.